On today's show, how did Chet Holmgren look for the OKC Thunder in his summer league performances after basically redshirting his first year in the NBA? What are the expectations for him and the Thunder next season, and how Cason Wallace and many of the other young pieces factor into OKC's plans going forward? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. So what is PrizePicks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. You don't have to compete against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And PrizePicks offers projections on pretty much any sport that you watch. That includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. They've got you covered for all of the action. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Thunder, Rylan Stiles. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Thunder. Here to break down some of the OKC Thunder Summer League action. And we're going to start with none other than Chet Holmgren, Rylan, who, we didn't get a chance to see him his rookie year, injured, winds up basically redshirting the whole year. Let's start with him. How did he look, I guess, through a handful of Summer League games, before Vegas, then in Vegas, and how different, I guess, are maybe expectations for him, if at all, going into this, what is essentially his rookie year after spending an entire year with an NBA organization already?
Chet Holmgren looked incredible defensively as a rim protector, which is something that the Thunder really need after watching them play last year. They made the play-in tournament despite not having a traditional center, despite not having a big man or any sort of height on their roster. So that was a massive impact from day one. You see him defending the rim in the pick and roll, and you can even use him on kind of as a help side defender, but he's more effective as the lone big on the floor, which he'll look like he'll be the lone big on the floor a lot more come regular season. It was just hard to make that happen this summer league because you're not going to bring Jalen Williams off the bench whenever he's a returning player. So that's why he played a little bit more of that 4-5 role in summer league. But overall, you saw how good he can be defensively from the first day on in his NBA career. And then offensively, guys were closing out hard to the three-point line to defend him, which gave the Thunder more flexibility and gravity offensively. And so you saw him also dominate as a roll man in the pick and roll. And so you can start to piece together how he'll look once you surround him with the guard talent in Oklahoma City, like a Shai, like a Josh Giddey, whenever you get those kind of players around him. And so I think that with the Thunder, you're going to see them have success with him playing the 5. And then with expectations changing, it's twofold. It changes for him, number one, because Jackson, if you remember this time last year, when the Thunder drafted Chet and the Rockets drafted Jabari, like these were guys that were billed as franchise-changing players, franchise cornerstone players. And at this time last year, we were discussing if SGA could ever reach that number one option plateau. We were discussing if he can be an all-star, superstar type of guy. Well, all he's done since then is become a 30-point per game scorer and become a fifth in MVP voting and a first team All-NBA guard. So he answered that question.
all he's done. Just a way to undersell him just a little bit with teeing that one up.
That's all he's done. And so that alleviates pressure from Chet Holmgren. This time last year, we didn't know Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara would be so incredible and finish runner-up for Rookie of the Year. Like, everything has broken right for the Thunder to have that surprise year last year to where Chet Holmgren could come in, not as a franchise saver, not with all the expectations, not with all of the pressure on him, but instead he comes in as a complementary piece who does everything the Thunder were missing: rebounding, rim protection, shooting. He does it all that they needed, and he just slot right in. So I think that this was overall going to be a expectation-changing landscape of a season for Chet individually, but team-wise, you look at this Thunder team, they're deep enough to avoid the play-in tournament in a positive way and finish in the top 6.
How do you like his chances, I guess, against Victor Wembanyama for the Rookie of the Year award this next season, if only because it feels like there's been a bit more of a emphasis, a focus, if you will, on rookies in the last 2-3 years, especially from, national pundits and whatnot, the voters emphasizing winning, right? And players who impact winning. And if the Thunder have another successful year, if Chet Holmgren gets integrated in and the Thunder, again, play in bound or have a successful season, I feel like he might earn some significant kind of cachet with the voters if Wemby is on, a Spurs team that's last in the conference versus Chet Holmgren, who's playing maybe an integral role on a Thunder team that's shooting for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that this changes things for the Thunder in the sense of when you look at Chet and you add him to this roster, it doesn't just change with what he brings, but it messes with your rotations in a positive way. Where like Jay Will, he was the starting center on last year's team as an undersized big man, but now he's going to move down the pecking order to being your backup big man, which takes pressure off of him, but also kind of elongate your depth because he showed he could be effective. He was able to defend Jonas Valanciunas in a big way down the stretch of that game against the Pelicans in the play-in to get the play and win. But now you're only asking him to do that for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a night instead of carrying the lion's share of the minutes. And so you see that aspect. You bring in Vasilij Micic, who is a 2-time EuroLeague MVP and has that championship pedigree, and by all accounts is an incredible winner, incredible leader as kind of an adult in the room on the very cheap end, contract-wise for a guard of his talent. He's comfortable coming off the bench and, again, elongate your depth. Cason Wallace has so many skills that you need on the perimeter. And so you move all those guys up and down the ladder to where now Isaiah Joe goes from your 6th man to your 7th man. Wiggins, all these guys who played solid roles, they are now in more reduced roles in a kind of positive way, again, where you can now have a team that's 10, 12 guys deep to where it makes the regular season a lot easier. The Thunder are going to be a young team. Young teams typically care more about the regular season. This young team obviously did last year. That's not going to change. And then when you have 10 or 12 guys who you think can legitimately make an impact in the NBA, the odds are every night you can cycle through and find 7 or 8 that given night that can help you impact winning basketball. And Mark has shown he will play 10 to 12 guys in any given game. So I think that overall, this offseason was a massive win for the Thunder moving forward in terms of winning.
I'm glad you mentioned Cason Wallace here because I kind of got the feeling, and maybe it was just a small subsect of Thunder fans online, maybe the vocal minority, that were maybe a bit underwhelmed with his performance through 4 summer league games. How would you evaluate his play across the games that he did participate in?
Yeah, I can see where the box scores are underwhelming outside of that debut against Dallas, obviously. But whenever you actually watch the game, he was being put in spots where he's going to have to play in OKC come October. Guard-to-guard screening action, popping out to the three-point line, playing on the ball, playing off the ball, those type of things, the catch-and-shoot threes that he was able to pull off, those things are very repeatable. And I think that overall, he was able to have success defensively, which obviously in the summer league setting is not a huge deal for perimeter players, but it is something that he was able to have success defensively against NBA caliber guys. I would say, too, that summer league can be misleading in the sense of guys can be way more aggressive. And so you saw Chet's turnovers up out the wazoo, Cason Wallace's turnovers high as well. But whenever you get 10 fouls, you can just harass ball handlers all you want to because you're not going to foul out. No one's going to get 10 fouls in a 40-minute game. You're just not. So the box score, I would agree, was a little bit underwhelming. But watching him play in the ways that he had success, it showed that is repeatable come October. He wasn't doing things that he's never going to be asked to do in the NBA. It was all of the successful moments from him were things that the Thunder need him to do in the regular season. So that's where it was encouraging to me.
Now, the OKC Thunder also picked up a couple names, TyTy Washington and Usman Garuba, 2 former Houston Rockets draft picks in the aftermath of what was easily one of the most convoluted trades in recent memory. Rylan, what, I guess kind of at this point, is there a role for those guys in OKC? Is it just Sam Presti taking a flyer on a couple of young guys? What do you envision being the path forward for those 2 names?
This is an interesting question because I think that it kind of on the outside looking in seems a bit crazy, right? The NBA has increased your allotment to you can carry 21 guys in the offseason. The Thunder have surpassed that a little bit if you include their 2-way guy. They're at 22 names right now, although some of those moves have not been official by the Thunder, which is how they're skirting that rule a little bit. But this has been the vision from Sam Presti. And so you're going to hear some bad takes nationally come October when the Thunder do waive some of these guys and say, well, this is the problem with having so many first-round picks. You got to waive some good players. Sam Presti, since the moment this rebuild began, the season after the bubble, has said we want to eventually get to the point where training camp is the most fiercely competitive environment. And we're going to have some guys who fall away and who don't survive and who are left behind. But that's because other guys have grabbed that opportunity. And so that competitiveness of training camp makes your team better in the long run. So they've been building for this, and they are very comfortable letting go of guys who don't make it, letting go of guys who they've invested something in, whether it be draft picks or trades or whatever. And so TyTy Washington, Usman Garuba, they're going to have a shot if they have a really good training camp to bump someone off this roster. Ultimately, though, for those two guys, it would have to be a really good training camp because the Thunder just in the business of basketball, they don't have the same level of investment in, say, TyTy Washington as they do, say, Trey Mann, who they invested a first-round pick into. And so at some point, the business aspect of it wins out. And with TyTy Usman Garuba, they seem to have fans around the NBA front offices to where maybe they can get repackaged again, possibly not together, obviously, but traded again for a third time this offseason. So they have a shot. I wouldn't completely rule it out because the Thunder do truly want to embrace training camp competition, but they're certainly on the outside looking in.
What does Chet Holmgren ultimately look like after his redshirt year with the Thunder? How does Cason Wallace fit into what the Thunder are trying to accomplish? Of course, you'll have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Thunder. Rylan, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thanks for having me.